Well, here we are again, Tawnya.
Yes, we are.
I love collaborating with you. You know this about me.
I know you do.
And it's sort of annoying, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So, but
but not in this case. This was my idea.
Yeah, I am all over this.
Yes.
Working together on the same podcast. Where are we posting all this?
Yeah, we're posting it on my podcast, which is Triumphant with Tawnya, and my YouTube, Tawnya Landis, and then we're posting it on your podcast, Husband on Fire, and your YouTube, and all the social media challenges, because we really feel that this is a way we can help during this global pandemic of the coronavirus, everything that's going on in the world right now. And as we stated in the episode part 1 of this is part 2. So I'd highly encourage you, if you haven't listened to the first one, go back and listen to that.
Yeah. So we did a part 1 of how to cope when you're dealing with fear, and this is part 2.
Yeah. So I'm excited. And I'm excited to be collaborating with you too, sweetie.
Aww. My heart's exploding in my chest. All right, so where do we go from here? So
last time in the prior episode, I'm sure that you all have listened to, and again, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. Otherwise, this part's not going to make sense. But you pretty much interviewed me on how I was dealing with everything that's going on, and we talked about the way that I cope with anxiety, and as we talked about, we're very different, so we both cope differently. So I thought it'd be a good idea to get your perspective on it. I shared my perspective, which was, the way that I react and cope with things is a 180 from what you do. So
which yours was changing what you focus on through what you call an intention, which in that case was peace, or so just saying, okay, I'm going to focus on peace. For me, should I just jump right into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you cope?
Well, first of all, I have not been too concerned about the current situation, like you were talking about. But I do get, I have had times, and I do get anxious. I think, is anybody immune?
No,
I don't think so. But when I get anxious, or this what kind of, in the last episode, what really made me think about it was this whole idea of like, I can't control my thoughts right now. That's how I get. Like I can't focus on anything. I'm so all over the place, and it's sort of like this spiral thing. Like as soon as I sit down, like I want to work on something, or I want to focus on something, which is kind of a part of my superpower. I have this ability.
Yeah, you are laser focused.
Yeah, I have this ability to be like a laser. Like all of my focus and energy can be intense into one thing. And we talked about last time, it can be a blessing and a curse. Every gift has a other side of the coin.
Let's just stop real quick, because let me tell you guys how Scott can focus.
Here we go.
Yeah, we have 3 kids, and I know some of you have kids that are really quiet. Ours are not quiet. Our house is not quiet. We even have a little dog that is not quiet. And wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's never a dull moment at our house.
And if it is, we're like, oh gosh, what's happening? Yeah. Like, what's going on? What are they doing?
Why is it so quiet?
Yeah.
If it is quiet, we know something's not
good. And you always know when we arrive somewhere, because we come in like a wrecking ball.
My poor parents, who have 1 kid, me.
You were perfect.
And when our whole family of 5 comes over to their house, I can't imagine how it feels for them. But anyway,
but we're awesome anyway. We're just a little loud bunch. But Scott could literally sit at our kitchen table in the middle of chaos going on, TV blaring, music blaring, kids fighting, making dinner, like stuff, just Hallmark, everything, and you put on your headphones and you just laser focused on what you're working on.
Yeah, I have the ability to block out everything.
I could never do that.
if I'm focused on something. But here's where that kind of is great, because that sort of like sets up like why it produces so much anxiety when that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
When this is my anxiety. My anxiety goes to a place of when I cannot focus on anything, and I'll like, okay, I'll be working on something, I can't focus on that, so I'll be like, okay, well, what can I focus on? And I get to this place when I'm at my worst, my brain feels like it's going a million miles an hour, and I can't focus on anything. I can't do anything. I can't even maybe even rest or sleep or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When I get crazy out of control like that in my mind, it's not good for me, and probably not good for anyone around me.
No. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, because you've really worked through that.
Yeah.
And developed, so how did you do that? What do you do during those times?
So if anybody can relate to me, I mean, this is how I have to. Well, one thing you talked about in part 1 of this, the last episode, is you had just barely scratched the surface on this idea of how you have to deal with thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
That is the common denominator amongst all of us. All people need to deal with thoughts and feelings. We're going to talk about on an upcoming episode about people talk about behavior. People focus on behavior,
mm-hmm.
but really it's the thoughts and the feelings where behavior is driven from.
Yeah, because you talk a lot about this with your clients, because you help them move through this. That's like one of your other superpowers.
Yes.
And people like come in here and they're, they leave with just this sense of, okay, I got this. I've got that piece. I mean, I hear it all the time from your clients and your fans.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, your husband is like amazing. And he just, brings this sense of like, you're so practical. You bring a sense of peace, you're steady.
Mm-hmm.
But you too, get into a spiral.
Yeah. And
sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, you're fine.
But even though you haven't spiraled out with the pandemic going on, you haven't yet. Like I had, but you have experienced this in other times in your life. So tell people what are some tips? How do you move through it when you're like you, who's left-brained, and you're very focused? You finish what you start. You're a completer. So what happened? What do you do?
Well, the way that I have found that I have to deal with the thoughts and feelings, because again, the behavior is like this spiraling out of control, and I can't get control of myself. I can't get control of my thoughts. What I have to do in that case is I have to find somebody to talk to. And I have a very small circle of close friends. There are literally there's definitely less than 5, but there are probably, if I couldn't get a hold of you being one of them and maybe 3 other people, I'm really panicking. Like if I can't get a hold of one of those 4,
process.
Yeah, when I'm at that worst place, I literally feel like I'm going to die almost. I feel like I'm going, like, it's like what comes to mind is if you're rolling towards a cliff and your brakes go out and you can't stop it and you just know it's coming. Like I'm calling up somebody, or I'm getting in touch with you or a couple of my good friends, or probably my mom. So those are my people. I have to talk to one of these people because they know enough about me. And by the way, on the Enneagram, I'm a 6. So Enneagram 6s, we are about loyalty, and we are very careful with who we trust.
Yeah, you do not trust easy.
Yeah, but once 6s trust you, please never lie or deceive somebody who's a 6 who trusts you, because it takes a lot for them to trust you. But once they trust you, you're their person, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so those are my 4 people that are, I don't know if privilege is the word, but maybe
It is a privilege.
It's a burden.
I know who that circle is, and we all love you and
Yeah.
adore you, and this doesn't happen very often for you anymore. Like, it really doesn't. I mean, you have done so much work on this, and but you also aren't someone that's prone to anxiety either. So it must feel very unnatural for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, okay, so I'll share an actual story of when this happened, and I know there's so many ones that I could talk about between us that are more marriage focused, but this was a business one. And I remember late last year, I came in on a Saturday. I blocked the whole day off. I figured I'm gonna create this webinar presentation for the Husband on Fire brand, and I figured, if I just block out 6 hours in my laser focused thing, I'll get this thing done. On one Saturday, this is a huge project. I'm just gonna get done. And about 3-4 hours into it, like I'm starting to panic because I'm like, I only blocked out like 6 hours, and more than half of my time is gone, and I just couldn't. I don't know. It sort of was a writer's block kind of thing, and I just couldn't figure out. I couldn't get the traction. I couldn't get the thing moving. So I got to that panicky place, and it was a place where I was just going to give up this entire business model.
I remember.
This is the problem with...
You're just extreme.
That's another 6.
It goes to extreme other places.
Right. It's like all or nothing sometimes. But anyway, so I was ready to just I texted one of those people on that list, and luckily he called me back. He called me right away, and he just said, "Scott, what's going on?" And I'm like, I'm so frustrated. I can't think about.
Well, and you were having technical problems, all sorts of stuff.
Nothing was going right, and I just thought, there's no way I can't do this. The whole business relies on me getting this done, and I can't do it. And so that's sort of where the conversation started. And really, the conversation wasn't very loud. He had his kids in the background, and he wasn't able to focus completely on me. But here's the deal with at least with one thing I know about myself, and probably a lot of Enneagram 6s relate to, is if you know that person and you trust that person, they can pretty much say anything to you, and you're going to know that that's the truth. Pretty much anyone else outside of that circle who might have the best wisdom, it could be Jesus. If Jesus is outside that circle, you know that's the right truth, but you don't necessarily trust him, so you don't accept it. But if you're in this circle, whatever you say is going to help, right? So within, I don't know, it seemed like it was only a 5-10 minute conversation. He asked me a few questions. I know that he knows me, and he has my best interests at heart, and so it didn't really matter what he said. In fact, what he said didn't help me at all. It was just which is kind of funny. He's like, well, just do this, this, and this, and it was just the process of talking it out with him that I got to a place where I was like, okay, I know what to do now. And he asked me a few questions. He kind of pointed me in a direction. It was the direction that he pointed me that I was like, it wasn't helpful. I didn't go that direction. I went a different direction. But the process of talking out, it helped me to get in touch with my, past the feelings and to the thought. And I just needed a little bit of clarity. And once I had the clarity, I was just again, it only took me a few more hours. Out of that whole 6 hour time, I got the whole thing just done in a few hours. And that was a completed project. So I don't know. I think it's almost like a burden for those people around me, that I need those people. So here's the thing. I coach men, right?
Yep. One
of the things I do when I first start working with a new man on my performance program is I do an exercise. It's called the Total Freedom exercise. It looks like a life wheel.
It's a really cool exercise, by the way. I love that exercise.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we look at on the kind of look at your whole life as a whole, and one of the things we look at is your trusted relationships other than your intimate partner. And a lot of the guys that I've been working with, they score very low on that. And now I've been intentional because I'm kind of my natural makeup is I would not have relationships.
Yeah, you're an introvert.
Yeah, I would just like go to work, come home, go to work, come home, never talk to anybody. That would be, I'm a pattern person, I'm a routine person, and people are too unpredictable to be in a pattern or routine. So, my natural tendency is not to have friends that are really close. So I've had to be intentional about that and build those people around me and make sure to nurture those relationships. So I score pretty high on that, but a lot of the guys that I work with don't. And that's one of the first things that, we start working on. Like, who are the guys that you trust that you need to cultivate that relationship with? Because you need people. So if somebody's more like me, like part 1, the last episode, a lot of people I think can relate to you and the general anxiety and, kind of, for lack of a better term, maybe even catastrophizing what's going on and like, spinning out of control that way, thinking about it. For me, it's just kind of the opposite. Like, I can't even think about anything. If somebody's more relating to what I go through in anxiety, definitely having those close friendships is super important. So if you're in a spiral and you got a person you can talk to, I'd give them a call. Like, you got to talk to somebody. But if you don't have those people, start working on that. That's an indicator.
And I think it's interesting. So I am more of an internal processor. So I internalize things, which is interesting because I'm an extrovert. And you're an introvert, and you are an external processor.
Yeah.
And so you actually do need to talk. And I think it's really ironic that we have that makeup. I guess it's to force you to be alone as an extrovert with our own thoughts. And then for an introvert to actually, it's forcing you to actually have to rely on someone else and make those relationships. Because if you didn't have that, I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift and a curse.
Right.
Right? But if you didn't have that, then you would just stay in your own world and not interact with other people. And so I just thought that was interesting to point out.
Yeah.
But also, you went through a period where you didn't have even a small circle. Like, you just had like me.
Yeah.
And as a spouse, you definitely want to be able to like talk with your spouse and all of that, and we'll probably do an episode on that. But it can't just be the only person, right?
Yeah, it's a
So
danger.
speak more to that.
You want me to speak more to that?
Yeah,
Okay.
like why shouldn't your spouse be like your everything?
Yeah, so, and this again, another thing I work with guys on.
Yeah.
Like, and like you said, I've been one of those guys that put everything into his wife. Like, that's the only relationship I need. Who needs friends when you got a wife like, Tawnya Landis, right? So the danger with that, like, if I hear that, I literally am hearing, I'm hearing warning bells go off for any guy I'm working with, because what I've found to be true through my own experience and then working with guys and testing it and measuring it, and now speaking into the lives of guys about you cannot make your wife your end-all be-all for relationship.
Well, it's the same vice versa.
Sure.
Like, because I'm sure there's some wives that are similar to your personality, and they're making their husbands that.
Yeah. Well, so to state it more accurately, you cannot make your intimate partner your end-all be-all. For women, I would add, you also can't make your kids that.
Yeah,
that's a major one for women. But yeah, you can't. So when it comes to your significant other, we want to change the paradigm on that. You need to think about what you're bringing to that relationship rather than what you get from that relationship. So I can't think about you, even though I get a lot from you. I can't think about you as my source for my total freedom, for my relationships, for my, my vitality, my energizing, the things that make me happy and excited. I have to go find those other places. Now, I do find some of that with you, but as my spouse, but it's better, and what we work with our clients on is you got to build that into your life so that you're coming to your intimate relationship with a full cup. And then you got two people that are full, finding fulfillment outside the relationship for everything other than sexual intimacy. you can find outside the relationship. So again, if you're in a monogamous relationship, obviously,
which we are.
Yeah. So if you find all of that fulfillment outside, then you're bringing such an amazing gift to your partner, and both people doing that, it creates a really fantastic relationship, which is synergistic, which is, again, our whole thing is we work with people that want to make an impact on the world, people that have something near and dear to their heart that they want to make a huge contribution into. And if you're going to do that in your intimate relationship, you have an opportunity to pour rocket fuel on that intention, on that desire. An intimate relationship has the ability, the power, the capacity to take everything you can do as an individual and put an exponent on that. So that's if you build your life this way. But on the other hand, if you find you're in a place where you're looking at your intimate partner for, this is where I get my connection, this is where I get my my certainty, my variety, my all the things that it takes to have fulfillment, then that's a danger zone. Find those close relationships outside the relationship. Find hobbies outside the relationship. Find activities that make you come alive as a person outside the relationship, and then you're going to bring a full cup to the relationship.
So then, and I totally already know the answer to this, but I want you to explain it. So, but you're not saying to completely not look for any of that with your spouse,
right?
And so, can you speak more about that? Because I don't want people to get the wrong idea and think, oh well, I'm just going to go golfing because I heard on this podcast that, I need to find hobbies outside the relationship, right, or I need to go hang out with my friends and have wine or beer and not be home with my spouse. Mm-hmm. And so I want you guys to understand that is not what we're saying here.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? Because what we tend to work with is couples who have lack of autonomy.
Yes.
Now, if we're working with a couple who has lack of connection, that's a whole different spiel.
So let's talk about lack of autonomy for a minute, and then we'll get to lack of connection, because I think people really, this is something that I know has helped so many of our clients.
Yeah, and it's because that's what was going on in our relationship.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, when we were in our in our 28 years together, we've had so many different versions of our relationship.
We've been in all the seasons.
Yeah, but in our most recent version of our relationship, the last kind of chapter of down where we were struggling, and we actually was probably the closest. I don't know, there's been a couple times you could say, but it was definitely one of the closest for sure that we kind of considered divorce. In fact, we had that conversation.
Yeah,
about how are we going to do this? We don't want to mess up our kids. So how are we going to do this? We had that conversation. It was really scary, tough time. But that during that time, what led us there was this lack of autonomy. Mm-hmm. And you, well, maybe you speak to it, but I know that for you it was more like you felt like you were suffocating because I was sort of like this clingy leech, right? I felt like I was pursuing you and I was chasing you, and while you were kind of suffocating and trying to run away. But the root of that is neither one of us had a good portion of autonomy. And so our relationship fix, we needed kind of to separate ourselves out as far as individuals. So who are we as individuals? Who are we as people, individual people? And yes, that we have a relationship, but let's redefine our relationship where which creates passion and intimacy and a connection level that just wasn't possible before. It's the whole the metaphor of the magnets, right? If you have two magnets that are stuck together, it's hard to tell one from the other. Mm-hmm. There's no more pull, right? They're just stuck. Mm-hmm. But when you separate those two magnets out a bit, when you put some distance between them, you can feel that pull.
And that attraction.
Yeah, if you have one in your left hand and one in your right hand, you can feel that pull, and it's strong. That's what we were missing. And that's what we had to create. Because we were stuck together, there was no pull. Mm-hmm. So we had a lack of autonomy, and that's typically what we work with couples. And at least in the last few years, we've been working with a lot of couples who Well, I guess we've been all over the place.
We've had both. We've had the privilege to work with a lot of couples over the past few years. Well, over the past 10 years, but significantly since you took on the company full time, Marriage Architects and Husband on Fire. Just the impact in marriages has been incredible, and so we've had a lot of variety of couples in either one of these positions. And I do think, like, you know, you feel like, especially as parents and as, you know, people that both of us work, we both own, like we said before, we both own companies, we own a company together, and, you know, so there's not a lot of free time. And when we did have free time, we wanted to spend it together. So we had to find ways, though, to have autonomy so that when we got together, our relationship, we had, you know, it wasn't transactional. It was more relational. And, you know, you kind of can get stuck in patterns. You can get stuck in the same routine every day. And then you're like, where did the passion go? What happened here? And that was something that we realized, like, hey, we gotta like change a few things here, and that made a big impact for us.
So now let's talk about if the pendulum swings the other way and there's not enough connection. We definitely have worked with that as well.
Where you have like two people that are basically independent, but they're like roommates. And we've done that. We did that.
We've done that too. So in that case, what you're looking for, well, why don't you speak to this one?
So in that case, what you're wanting to do is find like common ground, like get some time together, have the connection times, and it can feel awkward, but that means, you know, and this goes for any relationship, when you're with your spouse, put your phone down and have a conversation. And so finding those, you know, moments of, you know, and this is a great time, you guys, to work on your relationship, as a lot of us are quarantined. And if you're listening to this later on, hopefully we're not quarantined anymore. But if you're listening to this, like, as we release it, like, we're all quarantined and it's looking like it's going to be a while. And so this is a really good time to focus on your relationship.
That could create some anxiety for some couples.
Yeah.
So to paint the picture, lack of connection is you both have separate lives. Like you mentioned, the typically story is a woman has her girl time, she's hanging out doing wine, the guy maybe, you know, gets a beer on the way home from work, and, you know, whatever,
watches TV, watches sports,
sports, golfing, fishing, hunting, you know, just never around. And so you got two people that are individuals to the max, and they've let their connection go.
And so on that note, you need to start focusing on your spouse. How can you give to your spouse? How can you spend time with your spouse? What are things that you can, you know, talk about, and, you know, that don't involve, like, you know, if you have children, you always have that time talking about the kids, but find something you can talk about that's not like the kids or work, but actually can, you know, bring you closer together. And finding things you can do together. Like, I remember when you wanted me to start golfing with you, and you were like, and if you guys know anything about me, I am somebody that moves at a very fast pace. And maybe golf someday will be my jam, and I have the utmost respect for golfers, but in my current state, in my current season of life, I am like the one that's, you know, running, doing like high, you know, intense activities. I'm moving 1,000 miles a minute, and golf moves a little slow for me. And so you were like, hey, well, you could get cute clothes, because you know I like clothes.
And I started sending you pictures of cute golf outfits on women, and that's how I hooked you.
And so we went shopping for these outfits, and that was one way, and I love shopping, and that was one way we could, like, spend time together. And you know, and I can give countless examples of that, but that was something, you know, we tried out. We do vacations together. As in this current season of life, with, you know, before the quarantine happened, being so busy with the kids' schedules that a lot of times we're going in opposite directions, we sneak in, like, time together where we'll just have a conversation.
I think that, so this is we're really deep into, like, a relationship challenge. You know, we could spend a whole series on of episodes about this. But so just to, you know, to get back on track of the topic of this one practical thing that you can do if you find yourself in a place where, oh yeah, my spouse and I have not been connected. Here's the practical thing: date your spouse.
Yep.
There's all sorts of dates. We talk about stay-at-home dates. We talk about, you know, quick, you know, get a picnic park date. You know, go to a movie. Do something where you guys can look in each other's eyes. And my advice to the men would be: study your wife, become a student of your wife, understand. Like, I knew Tawnya wouldn't be interested in golfing, but she would be interested in getting a golf outfit. So, you know, you lead with what are the things your spouse is interested in. You got to really remember or learn who your spouse is, and the best way to do that is spend some time. So, and date could be, you know, let's just, like, when we put the kids to bed tonight, let's spend 15-20 minutes just talking. Let's not turn on the TV. Let's put our phones away. Let's just spend 15-20 minutes talking. We haven't done that in a long time. Would that be okay? And I know if a husband does that, typically the wife's going to be like, sure, you know.
Yeah, we love that. We love being able to, you know, talk and you know, you can talk about, okay, if you don't know what to talk about, then talk about, you know, what are you looking forward to? Like, I know for us, like, we look forward to just having those quiet moments, and like, we love our life. We've said that before, but we also look forward to, you know, getting a vacation or getting a moment to sleep in or getting
in a warm climate.
Oh yeah, a sunshine, like warm sunshine
Hearing
on the
beach.
Yeah, we don't live in that state. But in just having, you know, talking about those, it doesn't mean it has to happen right now. It could be 5 years out. It could be 10 years out. It could be 20 years out.
By the way, a tip for the husbands, and this works well for the wives too, but husbands usually are the ones scratching their heads like, I don't know what to do. We created a program through Marriage Architects called Relationship Inspirations, which is literally every 2 weeks, you're going to get emailed to you a new exercise, a new thought-provoking video that's going to get you to be like, oh. So it's basically, if you want a plug-and-play way to date your wife, go get the Relationship Inspirations. It's relationship-inspirations.com, and you can get it there. Yeah, so like Tawnya said, if you don't know what to do, start with that one. Just ask, what are you looking forward to? So I'm wanting to bring us back to
our topic that we started with, but we kind of went into a direction which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we should talk more about that.
We should, but to bring us back on topic, you know, finding that circle of people. So what happens if, you know, you work with men on finding, you know, a circle of trusted people. I work with women on doing the same. Yeah. We work with couples on finding that. I mean, we do it in all realms, but the bottom line is you need community.
Yeah.
And especially, I want to point out in the time that we're going through, like, having a good community is so important. And I'll see a lot of people that post, and it really breaks my heart. They're like, well, I don't have any friends. I don't have community. And I know I have felt that in times in my life. Yeah. You know, we went through a period that was not fun. And, you know, and it was very challenging. And I literally felt like I didn't really have anyone, and you were working a lot. And one thing I had to look at is, what kind of friend was I being? What kind of friend did I want? I needed to stand up and be that friend, community member that I wanted so badly in my life, because that would attract it. And I couldn't just sit there. I was sitting there in, you know, misery for a while. For those of you that don't know, we went through the 2008 crash, and we basically lost everything, including our house with the white picket fence. Financially, but we didn't lose our family. And at the same time, we had our son who was 4, and then our daughter who was extremely sick and had a very uncertain future. We didn't yet have our third, and I went from working full-time, great career, to being a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, and we moved to a different state with no support and no family. And you worked, I don't know how many hours, like a bunch of hours, all the hours, and I just felt super alone, and I realized I had to get out of that space and really go look for people, and it wasn't easy. I wanted to just, but I had stayed in that spot, and I'm like, I realized if I wanted that friend or I wanted that community, I needed to step out and display those characteristics that I wanted. So I would really challenge you, if you're feeling alone or you're feeling like, well, I don't have anyone else, like make a list of 5 characteristics of people you want to interact with. And the reason I say 5 characteristics is, like one of mine is, I'm not going to taint yours, you guys, so I'm just going to give you a couple, but one of mine is I want to be around people that have integrity. Integrity is extremely important to me. If someone doesn't have integrity, it's really tough for me to be in a relationship with them. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I definitely, in my close circle, I can't deal. And I too have a circle of about 5 people that I trust, and I'm very protective of them, as you know, and they're all different. They're very different personalities, but they all have these things in common that I have. Another one is that they have to have integrity, and then they have to be positive. I can't because of the work that we do and the things that we have, I do want to be in that relationship with my really close friends and people that tend to look at the positive. So like if I call
part
them,
of our profession is we're always pumping people up. So in your close relationships, you need people that don't require too much pumping up.
Yeah, and it's okay to do that in my work environment, and I love doing that. That's one of our superpowers, right. I feel like. Yeah. But when I go to get filled up, and I also equally fill up these women as well with my friendship, it's that's a different type of relationship. In a professional relationship, I give my clients, as you do, 150%. Yeah. They get all of me, and because that's the service that they've paid for, right. And what I promise them. But when I'm in relationship friends with someone, it's an equal relationship. And there are times where they need me more than I need them, or I need them more than they need me. But I mean, it makes me want to cry because we've both worked really hard in getting these, relationships set up, and
so grateful for those people.
So grateful. And if you're someone who also, like me, has been burned in the past by relationships which I've been very burned. I want to encourage you that there are really good people out there. Yeah. But be that friend, that community member that you want in your life. What you're desiring, put those 5 characteristics on a piece of paper. Keep them at the forefront of your head, because that's what you're going to see. It's like, I know this is a deep topic, but it's just like if somebody's like, oh, I really want to get this, I'm really looking at buying this, Tahoe, like the car. Like, I really want to get a white Tahoe. And you're like, oh, that's a cool car. And then all of a sudden, all you're seeing, your friend mentions to you, and then you see white Tahoes everywhere. Yeah. It's the same thing, you guys, I don't want to dumb it down or anything, but I'm saying what you focus on is what you're going to get. And so focusing on being those attributes and looking for those attributes in others, but making sure that you too are that. You can't expect someone to be loyal to you if you're not loyal to them. You can't expect someone to be trustworthy if you're the one that's gossiping. And if you've done that, we all have done stuff that we're, that maybe we need to make some changes.
Just let this be your reminder, right?
Yeah, let this be a reminder, and be that person, and go out there and look for that. I've met so many. This is one thing I really do love about social media, is finding those relationships. And I have made really good friendships, even through social media, of women that I would have never met otherwise. And I'm thinking of one in particular that I can't even imagine my life without her. And it was being able to connect through social media that's made the difference. And I trust her wholeheartedly. And I hear a lot of negativity towards social media, which I understand, especially right now. But here's the power that you have. You have the power to not allow that to affect you by clicking the unfriend or the unfollow button, and don't be afraid to use it. I think people don't realize they have that power. It's not like you're stuck at work with that person, or at your job, or you're stuck. And if you are, that's a totally different situation. But on social media, you can completely design your community. I was part of a group recently. I'm a part of a few different groups. And I run groups on social media, and I hold them to certain standards, even my members, because I want to protect everyone, as you do as well. And I, going off on a little tangent here, but I think this is important for people to know, is I was in a group, and it was just constant negativity, and I pulled myself out. I'm like, I don't have to subject myself to this. And that's fine if other people do, but for me, it wasn't in alignment with the community that I wanted.
Yeah. And you know that because you're very intentional about, like you mentioned before, positive people.
And people with integrity. Like, they're, bad-mouthing other people. Everything was, like, happening, negative. I mean, and I'm just like, what, this is just not where I need to be. But then flip that, I have other groups I'm part of where it's super... it is in alignment, and it's feeding me. So, and you make sure that if something's feeding you, that you're also feeding it. So you can't expect just to take. You have to also feed, because that's true. I'm talking about friendships here, guys. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about community. Yeah. I'm not talking about if you're in a business or you're paying someone for a service. I am not talking about, it's completely different. I'm talking about community and friendships and relationships. So
on the Awaken Life Academy, for our Awaken Life Academy members, one of the I have a teaching that's about the relationship dials.
It's so good.
And I think we'll definitely be uploading stuff all the time. So Awaken Life Academy members, they pay a small fee each month to have great content and access to courses that are on landis360.com. But one of the things is we'll get that. It's a finding your purpose and fulfillment a course presentation that I have. We'll upload that very soon. But it talks about those relationship dials, and maybe it'd be good. Maybe we just put a whole one up there with both of us talking about the intentions behind relationships.
Well, yeah, and it's even a conversation we've had with all of our children. As we've got one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary, and it's important for them to even know these, what relationships to have in their lives and what not to. Yeah. Especially middle school. If you haven't had a kid go through middle school, we're on our second going through middle school, and man, middle school is definitely an interesting time. For sure. But this has been a great episode. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I want to there was one thing that we really wanted to cover here.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, we have to cover, there's two things. One, I want you to touch on one of the ways that you can practically deal with the thoughts and feelings that you're dealing with around anxiety is just breathe. And as a somatic trained coach, you've got some, pointers on that. So, I know you could do a whole class on this, but give just the basics.
Well, so I am in tune with the body, and a lot of times we'll have clients come in, and you'll even be coaching clients, and I'm like, okay, we need to stop, because they're actually not breathing. And the breathing gets really shallow, it gets stuck somewhere. So a lot of times I find when people are stressed or they're upset, it can get stuck like in their chest, it can get stuck in their gut. They're like, but they're just taking, like, have you ever felt...
We've seen it in the head.
Yeah, we've seen it in the head.
Headache.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you're, like, actually not getting oxygen, but your breathing is not, it's not moving through you. And that's a problem. And so a lot of times what I'll do is teach a simple breathing exercise. I've got it up on my YouTube. I've posted it on Instagram before, taught it to clients. It's something that I learned. And it's just doing 4-count breathing, and it's and it really can calm your nerves. So if you're like, really upset about something, or you're feeling like anxiety, you're feeling like there's something heavy on your chest, or there always could be a medical condition. So I want you to contact your doctor or call 911 if there's a medical condition. But if it's just like, oh, I'm so stressed, and you notice, hey, I'm not breathing, then it's time to breathe. And so what I tell people is take a 4-count breath in. So you want to count in your head like 1, 2, 3, 4 in. Hold it for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let it out for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you do that a few times, it should help calm and make sure you're getting the breath. If it feels stuck here or here, that you're getting it. We're on podcast. So if it gets stuck in your chest, or it gets stuck like in your gut or your sacrum, get it pushed through there. So, breathing through it. A lot of times, we get in our heads and we forget the body. And your body, as I stated before, is going to hold on to that. It holds on to stress. Have you ever got in your head and then all of a sudden you're physically sick over it? It's because it gets in your body.
Yeah. So breathing, you can think about it, circulates or moves
that energy.
Emotions are connected with energy. So
Yes.
When you're in this anxiety state, you can circulate it, you can move it, you can process it. We've already talked about ways to do that, but just breathing does it. And I remember on the last episode, you talked about this time where you did Brenna's hair and you were just in this peace state. Well, one way to stay in the intention of peace is breathing. And I just pictured you, because I know you, pictured you were probably doing some of your 4-count breathing at that time to stay in that state of peace. So this is these are things you can do. Like you gave some stuff last episode, I gave some stuff this episode, and breathing, and you can do all of them. You can do them in combination. So our goal on last episode and this episode is to help people who are how to cope with fear and anxiety when you're in that place. One more thing, and then we'll wrap this one up. How do you support the person who's trying to cope with fear, or you can see they're dealing with fear, anxiety, they're going down that spiral? What's a way to support them? I mean, obviously you can send them, hey, this is an awesome episode, podcast, and send them a link. But how? I don't know if that's a good idea or not. But
I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
I think.
How else?
I think definitely not judging them, because everybody responds differently to what's going on. If when they're faced with fear, we don't want to feed that fear and be like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure if somebody's let's talk about what's going on right now, with the quarantine. Oh yeah, we're probably gonna get on lockdown like Italy. Probably not the best thing. It could happen, but maybe not the best thing to tell someone right now that's dealing with a lot of fear and anxiety and uncertainty. But really just be a presence of calmness for them.
Okay.
And instead of judging them you're being ridiculous and this is
I was going to ask you, what does judgment look like? Okay.
So judgment's
dude, just shut up, stop being ridiculous. That would be
Well, and I see these people posting on social media, and again, you guys, I love social media. I've built a business on social media, but it definitely has its downsides. But I've definitely seen people judge and calling people, if you're the one posting it, if you're the one taking all the toilet paper, you should blah blah blah. I mean, just nastiness.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not helpful.
So don't be nasty.
Don't be nasty.
Okay.
I think have compassion.
You said be a calming force. How do you do that?
I think it's just be a place for them, like you were talking about, to process. Maybe they just need to process this.
Yeah.
Maybe they're internalizing it, or maybe they need to externalize it.
Okay.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But
so asking some questions,
just
what's really
some
bugging
questions, what's going on? What can I do to help you right now?
What could you ask? So you say, what's the what are you really worried about? What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, you always say that, and it's so helpful.
Is it okay? And then from there, I'd be curious, so they say, well, the house could burn down, and you say, my thought would be to ask, do you really think that's going to happen, or what's the likelihood that's going to happen? Like, just asking that, is that a good question?
I think so. And then but I also think just asking people, what do you need right now? How can I best support you?
Oh, that's good.
And instead of assuming that, like, well, they just need a
instead
vent.
of giving advice saying this is what you need to do, say what do you need?
Yeah. So a lot of times if I I would just be like, how can I help you today? How can I support you? I mean, you're really good at that. You're like, what do you need from me today? How can I best help you? And
by the way, I think when you do that, and it's fantastic. I think that's just a great thing for any spouse. Like, ask your spouse, what do you need today? How can I support you? It's just a powerful question.
Well, and I have to ask you as well. Like, what are your feelings on this? Because I know last week when if you guys heard on the last episode, I had my few days of panic. I wasn't sleeping. I went to the grocery store a couple times, like, and you saw all this happening. You knew what was going on, and you definitely showed up for me. So what are some tips you have with that?
Well, this is going to sound ridiculous, but when it comes to my relationship with you, I'm usually pretty lost.
I don't think that's helpful for our listeners.
I know, we'll have to edit this part out, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like it sounds like I do okay based on the feedback you're just now giving me, but I knew not to, like, be judgmental or be nasty. I knew that. But mostly I was just like, I was concerned. You mentioned compassion. I did have compassion. I had care and concern for you. And maybe that just, whatever came out of my mouth was, in my actions, turned out to be okay. But I honestly didn't know. That's why I'm asking these questions, like, because I'm probably not the only one. When your spouse is, in that place and you can see it, like, how do you support them? Is coming from a place of, like, I really actually need to know. I'm curious about this. And as I'm talking this out, what occurs to me is my thoughts and my feelings were in a good place.
Yeah, they were.
I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know the right things to say and the right things to do. But I know my intentions were good. Like I said,
positive intent.
Yeah, what I said on the last episode was I felt gratitude, knowing, even though I wasn't getting as good a sleep because you weren't sleeping, I felt gratitude that you were with me. Like, it would be much better to have you with me than not here, even if you're not sleeping. So I was from a place of gratitude, and I did want to support you as my intention. So even if I didn't have the behavior figured out, my thoughts and feelings were good. So you said that it turned out okay.
Well, I think that speaks volumes. I think a lot of times we think, what do I need to do? Like, we go into action. Yeah. I know that I do, but it's really about your intent and really about, those feelings. You can feel those. It's like energy. And I think
you feel oh wow.
And I felt like
especially a somatic or an empath person would.
Yeah, and I'm definitely both. And so being able to just feel that you had positive intent, you weren't saying much, but, like, you went to the grocery store with me, and
I was flexible.
You were flexible, and even though I know you probably didn't love that I was filling the cart with 2 weeks worth of groceries, but you still, to prepare for, which our kids are going to eat through in, like, a few days.
Teenagers.
Is that was something that meant a lot to me, that you were right there by me. And I know, and I felt like when during this time, like, it's so hard because it feels like, when you're in that state with anxiety, you just want someone to be there for you. And that could look like, I just feel
supported.
I just need a hug. I need you to hold me. There's been times where I'm like, I just need you to hold me.
Yeah.
I don't want advice. I just want, and that's important to know as somebody who's being asked, like, what you need.
Oh, yeah.
Is, like, ask for it. Like, if you're like, because I've said to you, I've been like, I just need you to be here with me. I don't need advice. I just need you to be here for me. And that looks like just sitting with me right now and hugging me or holding me. Or going, here with me.
Yeah, and let me just say to myself and the other husbands who are just as confused as I am a lot of times, I mean, really it's about your presence. So even though I didn't, like I alluded to, I'm confused a lot about how to...
Well, I'm complex.
Yeah, how, like trying to figure out what it is that that my wife needs from time to time. It isn't necessarily like I always know the right answer, but presence is something I know that is so important for me and any husband.
Yeah.
So if you're relating to me, guys, presence means you don't necessarily have to be talking. You don't necessarily have to be doing. Presence is your spouse, your wife feels you're not distracted, feels you are there for them, you're supporting them, you're on their side, and it's not necessarily in a doing or saying mode, it's in a energetic mode. It's in a place of your breathing is going fine, you're circulating your breath, you're not anxious, you're a powerful force that's calm. And that will calm an anxious wife 9 times out of 10 alone. Just being there.
Yeah, and I think that's very powerful. I think that's a really good statement to end on. And I really am so grateful for this time with you and being able to share what we have during what's going on, during uncertain times. But I think these are good points for life in general. I know they've helped us over our several years together. We've been married for over 21 and together for over 28. Is that right? Oh my gosh. And so we've definitely been through a lot of highs and lows and everything in between. And these have been really helpful for us and many of our clients we work with. So I want to thank you guys for joining us, whether you're listening to us on Scott's podcast, Husband on Fire, or on his YouTube, or if you're finding us on my podcast, Triumphant with Tawnya, or on my YouTube. Definitely feel free to share this episode, leave us a review. We're here for you guys. If you have any questions, reach out. We're on all the platforms, except we're not on Snapchat. But we're on everything else. So, but thanks for joining us today, and we're wishing you guys all great health and harmony, and
we'll be back tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
We just barely touched on thoughts and feelings and actions. We'll be talking about that.
It.
See you then.
Bye.